This is the Montana Outdoor Podcast, brought to you in part by Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, home of Boss Snowplows, CM Truck Beds, and Diamond Sea Trailers. Just go to rmtte.com for more information. And by Superior Hardwoods of Montana, home of the largest selection of in-stock high-end wood products and flooring in the western United States. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. Now, get ready for more fascinating topics and the most interesting people you will ever find in Montana's great outdoors. We offer new podcasts most every Saturday. You can get a link to these podcasts by going to our website, montanooutdoor.com, or by going to our Facebook page, or just send an email to Downrigger at montanooutdoor.com and say send a link to my email. It's that simple. Now let's head out with your host, Downrigger Dale, and see what's going on in Montana's great outdoors.
Thank you very much, Manny, and welcome into the Montana Outdoor Podcast. So good to have all of you along here, and glad you decided to explore more of Montana's outdoors with us. Want to give a special welcome to our men and women of the United States Armed Forces. They are deployed, of course, all around the world, and we're very honored to have you with us and listening to us while you're protecting us here back at home. And I hope we bring a little bit of home back to you wherever you're at. Thank you so much for your service, and thanks to our great veterans for their past service as well. Also, want to ask all of you listening here, if you have a chance, be sure and share this podcast with your family and friends. We always appreciate that very much. That is important to us and, of course, helps us a lot. Now, let's get into what I wanted to talk about today. We're going to cover a topic that we covered, well, it was some time ago, back in, December of 2003. We talked about the Fresno Dam project. But boy, a lot has happened since we talked to our guest here, Steve Darlinton. He is with the Bureau of Reclamation, and you may recall just recently we had Jennifer Patrick on, and she talked a bit about the Milk River project. She is the Milk River Joint Board of Control and Milk River Project Manager there. And we got into a little bit with her about Fresno, but we really didn't get into all that because our guest Steve Darlinton here has a lot of information. And of course, when we talked to him last, he was talking about that. The dam had sunk 10 feet since it was built back in mid-1930. And so I wanted to get an update there and then kind of see how the Milk River project is affecting that. So, Steve, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Now, Steve, you're based out of Billings still. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Before we go too far, let's get you to talk a bit about yourself and what you do for Bureau of Reclamation and for Fresno Dam and that area a bit, since we have so many new listeners to our podcast since the last time you were on, and then we'll get into the Fresno project.
Yeah, sure. So Steve Darlinton, I'm the supervisor of planning project management for Bureau of Reclamation out of the Montana area office. It's been quite a year. It's been a full court press the last, 2-3 years doing Fresno, diversion dam, same area siphon, the failure of the same area siphon, and then Hall Cooley siphon upcoming. It's been a pretty incredible amount of work on the Milk River project. And then personally, I'm a fifth generation Montanan out of Freeport. Went to Montana Tech, Go Diggers, and I love fishing and hunting. So,
all right. Well, Steve, thank you for that. Let's kind of start where we left off a few years ago. We had talked about the project that you were working on, the Fresno Dam project, which is, I guess, in a simple description, was you were the idea behind the project was you were stopping the dam from continuing to settle or sink. As I said, it had sunk about 10 feet over the time that it was built. So now, with all these things that have happened, kind of give us an update of where we're at now with the Fresno Dam project.
Yeah, so the Freson Dam project has been going great. We've made pretty significant progress on the construction of it. And just a little background, the settlement is pretty substantial. So when they built it, they put it in the river channel, obviously. And the area where the dam is in the river channel has sunk upwards of 10 feet. But the abutments where the dam rests and rock kind of anchors into the rock has not. So that's the concern. That's always been the concern, is that due to that settlement in the center and not moving on the abutments, we're getting crafty within basically the 1/3 points on both sides of the dam. And that's what we're trying to fix with a sand and gravel filter and then a bunch more weight to hold it all in place.
Mm-hmm. And has that part of the project been completed? Or how?
Not yet. Nope.
Okay.
So we did I would say the more difficult part last year, which was digging out the old waste fill and whatnot, getting it all the way down to the original foundation and building that back up. That required a lot of dewatering, a lot of work, and it did have a minor reservoir restriction, although it didn't really come into play due to the water situation from the Siphon failure last year. But we're through that, and now we're just building up with sand, gravel, weight, and it's going pretty quick, and we expect to be done with that maybe August, September of this year, and then road repairs. So
awesome.
It's going really good.
Yeah. Good. Now you have a couple pictures. Let's take a look at a couple of these for the Fresno Dam construction pictures. Now these were taken when? Yesterday?
Yeah, they're from yesterday, so they're really recent, and it's just showing. Depending on which picture's up, it's showing the dam being placed and then pushed with I think it's called I can't remember when they let some sort of box, and making sure it's in consistent lift. So it goes sand, then gravel, then the filter fabric that you see, then ultimately the weighted material.
Okay. So that weighted material, that's the gravel, dirt, and all that goes on top, you mean?
Yeah. Yep. That's just random fill to make sure that if water comes through the dam, it hits the sand and gravel, will get filtered down into a tow drain and safely discharged downstream. And then that weight is just to make sure that the sand and gravel stays in place if water does fill up.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you were doing all this work, how much of the St. Mary's siphon failure, and then, of course, the additional work on the whole Milk River project, how much did that affect what you guys were doing?
As far as the actual construction, almost none.
Okay.
Yeah, because, in all reality, lower reservoir levels helped with dewatering and helped with construction. From that perspective, it had no impact on the Fresno construction. Mm-hmm. The reservoir side is a whole different beast.
Okay. How much work did you do on the Milk River project and the St. Mary's? We had the failure, then the construction now that's been going on of the diversion dam and that. How much of that work were you working on as well?
Yeah. So, I'm an engineer, so I don't actually do any work.
Yeah, you don't get a shovel in your hand and all that, but you're designing all this and making it, figure out what's going to work and what's not. So did you do a lot of that development work then?
Yeah, I've been on the project management side for pretty much all of them. On your previous podcast with Sarah Patrick, she talked about how Reclamation transferred a lot of the St. Mary's Siphon work to the joint board. So her and I work a lot together to make sure that continues to move smoothly. But I've been involved in the Milk River project for well over a decade now as
Wow.
project engineer, and then now planning project manager.
So that was an all hands on deck deal. Uh, and I'm going to show more of the pictures for those of you that are watching here. You're going to see more of these pictures of the blowout that happened. It was about a 50-foot deep hole that blew in when that thing blew out, and then you had sent me some pictures of the St. Mary's Diversion Dam work. And there's 3 different pictures that I'll be kind of putting up as we go along. But tell us about those pictures. When were those taken, and what is the Diversion Dam?
Yeah, so those pictures were taken roughly within the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
Showing a little bit of progress. So the Diversion Dam is the primary dam that diverts water from the St. Mary River into our canal and ultimately into the Milk River. So it takes it across the divide from the Hudson into the Missouri. So it's the most important piece on the project to ensure that we can continue to deliver water on to the Milk River project. And that's why we started that contract prior to the St. Mary Siphon. Because typically, if you can't get water to the siphon, the St. Mary Siphon, it doesn't make sense to start on the siphon. And that's the same with Fresno and so on. So that's why we started on that project when we did, which they got awarded 2 years ago. Right now is kind of the first really big year. They got a lot of dewatering installed last year. Now they're starting to do the concrete for the headwork and ultimately the dam itself to make sure that we can deliver water. And it's a 3-year construction project.
Wow. Okay. So getting back to the Fresno Dam itself, let's talk water levels here. So how much did the dam project affect water levels that you've been working on, and how much, and beyond that, how did it affect the Milk River project? How much did that affect the Fresno Dam and the Fresno Reservoir?
Yeah. So again, the project itself didn't really impact the reservoir. The
Okay.
siphon failure significantly did.
Mm-hmm.
That's the primary source of water into Fresno Dam.
Right.
So, we lost it on June 17th last year. Basically, no water came in from that point until winter, spring runoff this last year. It's just so minimal that river actually just dries up 6 out of 10 years. And typically it's around 80 to 90% of the inflow that's coming into Fresno from St. Mary.
Yeah.
So out of that lost water was pretty substantial. And I've been to the last 2 years. And, this is the year that we're really, really seeing it, because we didn't get much water this spring in the Fresno. And they're making the releases to try to get the irrigators at least one cutting
Right.
right now. So those releases are ongoing, and we're actually going to essentially hit our target low elevation, I think Sunday. Either
Okay.
Sunday or Monday. We're going to start reducing the releases.
Yeah, well, I want everybody to take a look at this picture here that you sent me. That was you took yesterday, and we see this whirlpool growing. I'll try to zoom in on it a bit. That is a large whirlpool and growing. Now that started yesterday. That is from taking it down so that our farmers can get the irrigation water they need. Then is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yep. And as the reservoir lowers, and especially these high releases, we're releasing almost 900 CFS.
Wow.
Out of the dam right now. So that results in a pretty large whirlpool as we get lower and lower, closer to that intake. So that thing's only going to grow for the next 5 days until we kind of reduce releases starting next week.
And of course, a lot of you may now see that and go, hey, let's go take a look. Don't get your boat near that thing at all.
No.
Or don't let your dog get in that water. None of that, because that thing is pulling some current. How
Yeah,
much?
I mean, we actually closed that area off,
Good,
and there's a buoy, so
good.
yeah, stay away from the buoy.
What kind of CFS is coming into Fresno right now? Obviously, it's not 900 coming in, so we're
No,
dropping. Do you know
no.
about how much CFS is coming in right now?
Yeah, it's 13.
Oh boy, yeah.
13 and dropping.
Okay,
So, we need that basin specifically relies heavily on rain and that spring still melt to the prairie, and we just haven't had it. So
okay.
if it, I hate to say essentially nothing, but it's nothing that's going to make it here.
Right. So we're going to see some significant dropping. I want to just take a brief break here and talk about one of our sponsors, Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer, because they are, talk about doing a lot of work. They can help you get a lot of work done. So check this out. I want to take a minute to say thank you to a company that's been with us from the very start. Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. Truth is, the Montana Outdoor Podcast wouldn't exist without their incredible support. And if you've been enjoying these episodes each week, maybe it's time to support the folks who help make it happen. So here's the question. Do you need a trailer for work? For hauling gear to your next adventure? Or maybe a new truck bed to help keep your life organized, whether it's for work or play? Well then, go see the folks who already get what you're about. You see, if you listen to this show, you've already got something in common with Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. Like you, they love the outdoors. They work hard, and they're dang good at what they do. Their job? Helping people like you get your work done faster so you can get back out in Montana's great outdoors. Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer carries a full lineup of Diamond Sea trailers, gooseneck, equipment, dub trailers, well, you name it. Whether you're hauling a few supplies or towing the big stuff, Diamond Sea trailers are built to handle it all with reliability and ease. They also carry CM truck beds, the strongest, most durable truck beds around. Plus, they service everything they sell. Need your trailer rewired so the lights work the way they're supposed to? They'll take care of that too. Got a new truck? They'll get you set up with the accessories you need, installed and ready to roll. And don't wait until the last minute to schedule your trailer service. Do that ahead of time so your gear's ready to go when you are. They also stock a huge selection of parts for Boss snowplows, CM truck beds, and Diamond Sea trailers. And if it's not in stock, they'll find it. Need financing? Well, they've got you covered there, too. Need a gooseneck or fifth wheel hitch for that rodeo trip or family outing to the great outdoors? Yep, they install those, too. Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. They're in Missoula at 5680 Expressway. You can call them at 406-549-4243 or check them out online at rmtte.com. That's Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer, rmtte.com. Now let's get back to what Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer helped create, the podcast. So Steve Darlinton is my guest. We're talking about Fresno Reservoir, Fresno Dam. Also, we've been touching on the whole Milk River project. So, Steve, we were looking at that Whirlpool and talking about how it's going to grow. So, obviously, my email box starts getting full of with fishermen that love Fresno, and it's not far from Havre, easy to get to. So these drops in water level, I assume that's going to bring that reservoir down to, it won't completely drain, will it?
No, it won't. We're holding the minimal amount back, or a minimum, but it is going to be very low.
Okay.
We're going to get it down to right around 12, let's call it 8 to 12,000 acre feet.
Okay.
Where full reservoir is right around 90,000 acre feet. So it's going to be low.
How much did you say full is? Full pool is what?
Right around 90,000.
90,000
acre feet.
So
we're going to be down to 8 to 12.
Wow. So that's a significant drop. And will that last all summer long then, while these projects are going on?
Yeah, it will until we get the same air siphon finalized and running. So once we, if we finish the irrigation week, essentially, we'll drop down to our minimum flows starting next week, which is right around 100 CFS, which is 25 CFS for all the municipalities, and then roughly 75 CFS for the Fort Belknap Indian community, because they have the premier water right for the whole Milk River. So that'll be our base flow the reservoir will keep dropping until we get the same air siphon finalized and
Back online, basically.
Yeah, water movement again.
Okay. So in the meantime, give us an idea of, who all's going to be affected. Obviously, you're trying to let the farmers get a cutting in anyway. But I know some of the big concerns, not just farmers, but that whole Milk River system, including Fresno and that provides drinking water for a few communities as well. So how is that going to affect them? I mean, is there going to be enough drinking water? What kind of research have you guys looked at there?
Yeah, the biggest impact will be the irrigators.
Okay.
Not having their water for second cutting or anything like that. Municipalities, we will be sending down their contract amount for the municipality. So their water should be there.
Okay.
Now, we've heard that there is issues with ability to treat it and things like that just due to the low water levels.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual water will be there. So, if there's restrictions put on place, that they'll be put on by the community due to water quality or whatever it is.
Right. Because you got to have a certain amount of well water as well, correct? For the treating of it. Is that what you mean?
No. So let's use Havre, for example.
Okay.
Their water treatment plant primarily pulls from the Milk River.
Okay.
And so we will make sure that their contract amount is in there.
Okay.
But there could be obvious issues just due to the lower water levels than what would typically be released during the summer.
Okay. And then folks that are on well water, and that, I assume a lot of that aquifer probably gets water from the Milk River and that. So those wells could be impacted, I assume.
They could be. That's pretty hard to tell. Hopefully they get some recharge from the larger leaches we're doing right now.
That's
down the
true.
river.
Yeah. Okay.
So hopefully there is some recharge, and then, it's tough. It's going to be a pretty big impact for everybody down the High Line until we get the same air system back up and running.
Mm-hmm. And when, and you've probably been asked this question a million times, when do you think that St. Mary's siphon and that can get back online and start making that water flow?
Yeah, we're getting pretty confident that it's going to be end of June by the time to get up and running again. That
end of this month, you mean?
The end of this month, yeah.
Oh.
This is always the scariest part about a big project. We can see the end. So, as we look at, now we're talking weeks and days. So if we have an error, it's a direct 1-to-1, where if it happens earlier, we can maybe cover for it with working an additional day or something. But we're still feeling really good that it's going to be, end of June.
So when that comes back online, then would we see an impact sometime this summer of water levels gaining, or is that going to take quite a bit of time?
Yeah, so it's right around 2 weeks, 12 days to 2 weeks, depending on how much water is in the milk and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
But so once we turn on, we'll start seeing water flowing into Fresno, essentially 2 weeks later.
Okay.
So hopefully by that mid-July, we're seeing water levels come up again in Fresno. We can release right around 600 CFS out of the canal into the Milk River Project by the time it reaches Fresno, due to just general bank losses, evaporation, all that sort of stuff. Where we're typically down to 500 CFS with that reaches Fresno.
Okay.
But
So really, we see this big whirlpool developing where all kind of, fishermen might be freaking out a little bit, but really, our chances are, if I'm correct, are going to be pretty good that, say, by end of summer, things are starting to come back to normal. Would that be fair?
yeah, I think that's fair. We're going to run, once we turn on, we're going to run the canal until August 15th. One of the reasons we're shutting off a little earlier is because we're not done with the siphons. We still have Hall's Coulee siphon, which is the exact same condition as St. Mary siphon was failed. It's also 110 years old. We got the momentum, we got the crews. We want to make sure that we can replace both of these siphons at the same time and have a more consistent system moving forward. So,
where's the Hall's Coulee siphon located then?
It's 6 miles downstream of the St. Mary siphon on the St. Mary Canal.
Okay, so all that's going on right now then.
Yep.
Wow,
so anyway, back to your question. It's looking like Fresno should get up to pretty typical flows or elevations by mid-August in that 25, 55. So 20 feet down from Whirlpool, but kind of where we typically land for winter operations. It's a little lower, but it's getting closer.
Right. So now do you have any idea about how that compares to, say, last year at this time? Will it be better than it was last year this time? About the same? Or what do you think there?
It'll be almost identical.
Okay.
Yep. It'll be really, really close.
Okay.
So where we were this time last year.
Okay. And then looking forward as we go down. Now, of course, again, this is depending on all this coming out exactly the way you want it to, which, best laid plans, you never know till you fire these big boys up and they start spitting out a whole bunch of water, which I imagine that's going to be a bit of a breath holding kind of moment then, huh?
We're going to have a lot of people going along the canal, making sure we can make the delivery because we don't want another blowout. Yeah.
No. So I imagine, what, are you going to kind of bring it up slow and see how this new system handles it, or are you just going to flip the lever and let her rip?
Yeah, I mean, at some point you gotta trust your engineer, trust your construction, let her flow, but we will a little bit. So we typically increase it by 75 CFS twice a day until we hit our flows. So it will come up slowly, but at some point you just gotta let her go and the work.
So that moment's going to happen sometime the end of June, you think?
Yep.
Okay. So everybody towards the end of June, say a little prayer for these guys and make sure she goes. But I will say, from what Jennifer had told us and things like that the workers have been doing some pretty amazing work there and getting this and responding and doing what they're doing.
It's been incredible. I know Jen said it. I'll say it again. A bunch of Montana companies kicking ass, putting these pipes in, getting everything going. It's been really good. And we've had incredible cooperation from the Blackfeet tribe and the Blackfeet workers and getting all those folks up there, doing all the work. It really has been pretty miraculous. That, we're going to be right around a year from failure. And that is a big structure to get done in a year. So it is pretty incredible.
Yeah. When you think about it, of course, they didn't have the kind of equipment and stuff you guys had, but when they built this back in, starting in, 1905 or something like that, or?
Yeah. Yeah. That's when it got authorized. They started constructing
that took them years to build it, right? Years and years. So for you guys to turn this around in a year, pretty amazing. I hope at some point we're going to, of course, you don't want to celebrate too early, but I hope at some point communities along the High Line can, do some kind of a celebration and celebrate all the hard work that everybody has contributed into this and done, because you deserve it. It's really, whew, it's been quite a feat. Now, we're going to take one more quick break here before we go. I want to chat a little bit about my friends there at Superior Hardwoods of Montana. But when we come back, I want you to talk a bit about when you think you and your staff can say, okay, for Fresno, with the dam work and all that, our work is done here. We have completed what we wanted to do. So let's talk about that when we come back right after this. You know, they say they don't make them like they used to, but at Superior Hardwoods of Montana, that's kind of the whole point. This isn't just a lumber yard. We're talking about 11 acres of reclaimed wood. Wall paneling, flooring, trim, beams, slabs, you name it. Every single piece has a story behind it. Old barns, historic homesteads, long-forgotten factories. This wood has been places, and now it can be part of your story, too. Maybe you're building a home, remodeling a room, or just putting together that dream project you've had on the back burner. Superior Hardwoods of Montana can help bring it to life. They can even custom mill it to fit your exact vision, because real craftsmanship never goes out of style. And here's the thing. You're not just getting character and beauty when you choose reclaimed wood. You're reclaiming American history. You're giving something old a brand new chapter with values that never go out of style. Reduce, reuse, recycle. Whether you're a contractor, a weekend DIYer, or someone who just loves a one-of-a-kind piece of wood, Superior Hardwoods is open to the public and ready to help. Exotic woods, live-edge slabs, pre-finished and unfinished flooring, it's all in stock and ready to go. Need help picking out the right material? Just ask. Their team has been doing it since 1977, and they know how to guide you through the woods, literally and figuratively. Swing by their beautiful showroom at 5120 Highway 93 South in Missoula, or check them out online at superior-hardwoods.com. I promise you, you'll leave inspired. That's Superior Hardwoods of Montana. Local, knowledgeable, family-run, and ready to help you build something that lasts. Let them help guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. Superior Hardwoods of Montana. Go see him. Back here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast, Steve Darlinton is my guest. He is with the Bureau of Reclamation, who, of course, is in charge of Fresno. You guys do Nelson as well, correct, Steve?
Correct.
And what is it? How many different dam projects and that do you guys in charge of in Montana? It's a lot.
Yeah, as far as Montana goes, it's 13 high hazard dams.
Okay.
So, but
13
along
of
the Millfish 3, there's Nelson, Fresno, and Lake River, and then the St. Mary Canal.
Okay. We haven't talked much about Nelson. You know, we see these water levels really dropping in Fresno, and that, is that going to affect Nelson much? Do we see any kind of impact that Nelson's going to feel from all this?
Yeah, Nelson will feel it. We had actually a pretty good spring from runoffs in the lower milk. So it didn't hit Fresno, but it did hit the lower milk. So we got Nelson almost full this spring. But they're drawing it down, and the real impact will be next year when we can't, because Fresno is low, we can't transfer water from Fresno to Nelson. That's what we like to do, typically. But we need to capture it all in Fresno this upcoming year. So if there's an impact, it'll likely be next year with lower reservoir levels. And really the thing that can save us is another spring. You know, Mother Nature comes through and gives us enough water that we can transfer it over into Nelson.
So if we're going to have the siphons back up and working and all that, how come next year it will still be down? What's going to affect that then?
So in a typical year, we would be able to transfer water, so release water out of Fresno and move it down to Nelson because we have water coming in from St. Mary Canal, and we can kind of send water through all the reservoirs and fill them up. That's probably not going to be able to happen because Fresno is going to be somewhat low, and so it could happen. If we have a big spring and there's enough water, obviously that's a different story. But we're likely going to have to capture all the St. Mary water in Fresno to make releases for those upper districts. And Nelson will just be impacted due to not being able to make that transfer from Fresno to Nelson.
Okay, but will that continue to happen? Or
No.
So we get through this year. Then come next spring, we're going to have that bit of difficulty. But then after that, are we back to normal?
Operating as usual. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That should be the case. And then we're just relying on Mother Nature. Droughts, obviously.
Sure.
We've been in one that's been causing some issues. But yeah, then it's just operations involved.
Okay. So really, looking at it, we got kind of one full year where things aren't going to be like we would want it to be. And then after that, God willing and all that, we should just all operate as normal.
That's the plan. That's the hope. Yep.
Okay. So would that be when you and your crew and everybody involved can kind of breathe easy and say, okay, our work here is done? Are we looking at about a year from now, or when do you think you can say that?
I wish. So no, once we're done with the embankment, we got to move to the spillway.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So there's still concrete repairs and doing repairs at the spillway that's ongoing or upcoming. Mm-hmm. And we don't have as good of a schedule as we had previously. We've lost a couple of key people. We lost our engineer. So trying to find an engineer and get that project moving again. If I was to guess, it'd be in that 2027 timeframe when we start construct the concrete repairs. Mm-hmm. And then hopefully that'll be similar timeframe to the diversion dam. I'm hoping 2028, we can say Milk River, we're in the kind of normal operation or maintenance, although with the momentum we have right now, we're hoping to move down the St. Mary Canal and maybe replace a drop or things like that. Because there is hopefully some leftover money from the state portion that they loan to the joint board. Okay. And so we still hope we can do some of those other big projects. And then it's just the canal. And that'd be best case scenario. Okay. By the 30 time frame, we're focused on the earthen canal itself. And that'd be amazing.
So the work on the Fresno spillway, is that going to affect water levels and fishing quality in that at all, do you think?
It shouldn't. Okay. We obviously won't be able to use the spillway coming up. So, that'll be the kind of the drivers. On big water years, we like to use the spillway to operate. Obviously, we won't be able to do that, but we can transfer that water downstream or do something. So, as of right now, we don't see a big impact to the work from that kind of thing.
Because the spillway, if I understand it, and of course, you can tell I'm not an engineer, but that's for overflow. Is that correct?
It is. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So, yeah, when you look at it, we're probably not going to see overflow situations. I guess that would be a nice problem to have.
It would be a nice problem to have. Yep.
Okay. So that spillway work, how long do you think that's going to take?
We think it's a 2-year construction project. Again, we'll see. We'll see what the scope is. But that's kind of the assumption right now. I think if you got a contractor and they got going early, maybe you could do it in a year and a half or so, but it'll be a 2-year project, most likely.
Is that going to affect any kind of road closures or campground closures, boat ramp closures, anything like that?
Yeah, we're not. Well, I mean, honestly, we're not far enough along. We
Okay.
do have a road closure. I'm glad he said that because for the embankment project coming up June 25th to July 2nd.
Okay.
And
June 25th to July 2nd. That's which road closure is that now?
the Fresno Dam, the
Okay.
main road across the dam.
Across the
So
dam. Okay.
it'll really impact, farmers on that north side of the dam, and then cabin owners around that Kings Bay area will be impacted as well.
So they're going to have to go around the whole way around the other way? Is that what they're doing?
Yeah, basically from Fresno or from Haber, they'll have to go up Highway 213 or whatever one that is, and then they'll get their road that backdoors it. Yep.
Okay, and that's going to go on. You say from when was that again? 25th?
Yeah, June 25th to July 2nd.
To July 2nd. Okay.
We plan on getting out of the way by 4th of July.
Okay, well, good. So hopefully we'll get that, but do pay attention to that. And I'm going to have, you'll see some of these dates and things come up on the screen and that, and then in the podcast description for all the listeners here, I will put some links to information pages, things like that, so that you all can kind of check back and look at those kind of things and hopefully get you all that information you need so you can stay up on it and that. So there will be announcements, obviously, and that as we get closer into shutting down roads and things like that. Right, Steve?
Yeah, and we sent the first announcement last week.
Okay. Yeah, I think I saw
to
that.
the local newspapers, and we'll submit another one probably next week or the week after.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. If you can throw me in on those emails too, then I'll keep everybody abreast here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast, and of course on our live radio show every Saturday, the Montana Outdoor Radio Show. So we'll try to keep everybody informed on what's going on there and how this is working. So for fishermen, and I hope to have the FWP fisheries biologist Cody Nagel on here soon, and he can talk a bit about what they're going to see with these lower water levels and all that as far as fish population and fishing. So I hope to have some answers for all you anglers out there. Have you been given any information as far as how the fishery in Fresno has been impacted with all the work that's been going on here?
A little, we FWP and us have a joint meeting every April. Cody gives a great update on their fishery and whatnot. I don't know where they landed on, are they going to stock or are they not? I think they're leaning towards not, just due to the reservoir levels, because we are going to be really low. And the fish are going to be pretty stacked up. So, how it impacts it directly, that definitely is a better Cody question.
Yeah.
But I would expect some impacts to boat ramp and things like that just were typically not this low in July.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to just stay tuned here, folks, to that. And I am in contact, and Cody's getting his schedule cleared. So we will get him on soon, and we'll get more of the fish biology, boat ramp recreation side of this discussion going with him and that. So we'll get as much information to you as quick as we can so everyone can kind of gauge their summer and that. I mean, right now, Nelson is fishing pretty good. And
that's what I've heard.
And so I don't see that really impacted much. Now, we will see some drop down and all that, but when do you think folks are going to see, as far as people fishing Nelson, when will they see a pretty noticeable drop in Nelson Reservoir? Yeah,
I mean, it's going on right now.
Okay.
It's dropping relatively quick. But one of the positive parts about Nelson is it's a natural pothole lake.
Mm-hmm.
So it has a really big dead pool. It has almost 30,000 acre feet of just water that we can't relieve.
Mm-hmm.
It so it's one of the positive parts about Nelson that from a fishery perspective. There is a little bit more water that just cannot be impacted due to releases. Saying that, it's the same problem that we talked about at Fresno, boat ramps and all that sort of stuff.
Sure.
So I would expect, starting to really see impact in that. Usually July 4th, they shut down for some demossing, then they started second irrigation. So it'll be somewhere around that mid-late July timeframe where it'll be noticeably lower.
Okay. Okay. So, and again, I'll try to get links in there for all you folks that are been concentrating on fishing in Nelson and all that, so we can kind of get you some places to go to get updates and information and go along. But anyway, with all that's happened, I mean, we're at least you guys have really tried to have as minimal impact as possible. I mean, with this significant of events that have occurred, I mean, it's going to impact. I mean, there's just no way around it. But do you see you guys getting to relax a little bit, or are we looking at that 2028, 2030 before you say, okay, we're seeing this in our rearview mirror?
Yeah, no, I do feel pretty good. We are going to start to see kind of more normal operations soon. I'm sure if you ask our operations staff, they never relax.
Yeah, probably not.
Springtime in the operations, it's impossible to make everybody happy.
Right.
But I do think we'll get pretty normalized starting next year, and hopefully, we'll be back to just kind of making the harder decisions on timing and whatnot, but it's more normal. Yeah.
Okay. Lastly, how has the response been with the public and everybody, dealing with this? I know farmers that, they have a tough enough life, and now, this, but what's been the response? Everybody been pretty understanding with you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things. When you're running a 110-year-old system and you don't have the funding capability to replace it in a normal situation, I think everybody recognizes that, this siphon failure is something that was really hard to prevent without significant funding. So everybody's been very understanding up and down the system. And, other than a random outlier here or there, I think from fishermen to irrigators to municipalities, everybody has banded together to just recognize we're all in this together, and, we're trying our best. And you can see it. If you're up all in the Milk River Project Facebook page, you should. It's really neat.
Yeah. I might have a link in our podcast description of that. That has been a very helpful page. It really has.
Yeah, and it really does show that, everybody is working as hard and as fast as possible to get this system back up and running and normal.
I do have one last question, and that is, I don't want to get into a lot of finger pointing in that, but I mean, this probably could have been avoided had we funded things properly and been able to update that, from a 110-year-old system to, that. Do you think that the funding folks and the powers that be, do you think everybody's kind of learned their lesson with this whole thing?
Well, I mean, it gets tough, right? Because it's still the law. The reclamation law is the irrigators pay almost 75% of all costs associated with the project. So, St. Mary's Siphon, Hall Schooley Siphon, those are $70 million projects. It's not, it's really hard to expect the irrigator to be able to come up with $50-some million to do the project.
Yeah, these are farmers, and they have all these other things that Mother Nature throws at them. It's pretty hard to say, "Hey, yeah, no problem. We'll just write you a check." So, do you think there's going to be some ways to maybe step that up in the future, so all this great work that has been completed will now be able to be maintained and all that? Do you think?
Yeah, so there has been some really good things that have come out of this. So the state offered a loan to the irrigators. And as part of that loan, they have to repay $3 back that goes into an account that only Milk River Project can touch for operation and maintenance, or for large scale maintenance.
Okay.
And so, that's something that hasn't been happening in the past, is really setting aside, 50 cents a dollar, whatever it is, to have this big fund. This loan that they got from the state requires them to start to develop that fund. And I think that's a really big step that'll help, and the other part is just the irrigators. I know they've been lobbying pretty hard to try to get that cost share change from 75% irrigators, 25 fed, to the other way around. But we'll see how that goes. That's more of a politics sort of thing.
Right. Right. Well, bottom line is everybody pulled together. This thing is coming to a close, and the work has been phenomenal, and really could have been a hell of a lot worse had it not been for everybody banding together. So, yeah. I think everyone ought to be proud of how this got done, and we can't thank you enough, Steve, for taking the time out. I know you've been super busy, so thank you for spending time with all of us here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast and bringing us up to date on all these important issues.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. That will give you a pretty good idea of where we're at now and where we're going. Of course, if you have questions, you can get a hold of me. And Steve, is it okay if I send some questions your way? Can we put your email down there as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's on our webpage, and it's S Darlinton without a G at usbr.gov.
All right, and I'll put that in there for everybody too, and then that way, if you do have continuing questions, we'll be sure and get those answers back to you as quick as we can, and keep it going. So until we talk again about this and get more updates from Steve, as well as like I say, Cody Nagel coming up down the road here soon. Folks, be careful out there. Take care of each other, and we'll see you next time here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Montana Outdoor Podcast. It has been brought to you in part by Superior Hardwoods of Montana, home of the largest selection of in-stock high-end wood products and flooring in the western United States. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. And by Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, home of Boss Snowplows, CM Truck Beds, and Diamond Sea Trailers. Just go to rmtte.com for more information. So what did you think of today's podcast? Send your questions and comments to Downrigger at montanooutdoor.com. We should be dropping a new podcast this next Saturday. Until then, we will see you soon out in Montana's great outdoors.